Afternoon. Excited to go to Missouri, place we haven't been able to win, I guess, in the history. Haven't been able to win it. Not a long history, but we haven't been able to win up there. Playing for the Battle Line. They certainly have, a really good team, 23rd in the country, well coached, schematics. Are very good. They run the stretch, the inside zone. They run a little bit more inside zone this year, running it really well. Got a really good offensive line coach. Brady Cook makes them go, obviously, and you know, um, Luther Burden and Theo. They're really. I don't know if Theo gets enough credit because he's an outstanding wide receiver with Cooper. They're good on the O line, D line wise. They're very talented. You got some good pass rushers. Linebackers can run, good in the secondary, good on special teams. They've got a fine football team and well coached, and but we're looking forward to going up there. It's a little different, playing them on Saturday instead of playing them on Friday, but trophy game, and we're excited to get up there.
So if you're an Arkansas fan, who are you supposed to hate? Who's supposed to be your rival? And where would Missouri rank up there in your rivalry echelon, I guess?
Well, I think I think Missouri is right up there at the top of rivals for us. I think if you ask our team, I think obviously we have several trophy games, and one of them just went out. But um, I would think Missouri would be one, Texas certainly would be one, LSU would be one, but I think Missouri ranks up there at the top.
Um, Forcing turnovers. You guys had, I think, 5 defensive touchdowns last year, and not as many
Yeah, I think we
takeaway.
led the country in defensive
Yeah.
touchdown.
So is getting them? Is it more of a random thing? But because this same defensive coordinator, a lot of the same players, is it random or is there some skill to getting them?
Well, I think obviously you're trying to rip the ball out. You're trying to intercept them and take them back. We just haven't had a lot. We haven't had a lot of takeaways this year. If they do, a lot of times they come in spurts in one game. We haven't been consistent with that, and those are certainly things we're working on. And but to answer your question, I think yeah, uh, I think they happen. You force them to happen with hard hits, like what happened to us on Saturday. Um, but uh, we've got to get better at that. I do think we're swarming the ball better the last couple of weeks than we have since the Tennessee game, and so I think they'll come.
I was wondering how much you push that idea that Arkansas has never won in Columbia. I think 0-6 all time. Do you talk about that a lot with the players, or is it just focusing on this year?
I think that's part of it. On Monday you have a presentation of their football team, and I think that certainly is part of it. Anything that you think can be a little bit more of a motivator, which they shouldn't need anything else. We're playing for a trophy. We're playing Missouri. They're a rival game for us. They they beat hell out of us last year. That should motivate us. The problem is a lot of the kids that are on the team and playing weren't here last year too. So you have to find different ways to motivate. That's my job. Instead of just going, well, it's Missouri, it's a rival. So yes, to answer your question, I think that's part of it.
And you talked a little bit about Brady, but like, what are your thoughts on him as a quarterback? What makes him go? Obviously, he's a veteran for him.
I think leadership and his competitiveness and the team. I forget what game it was. I think it was Auburn when he was hurt and then came back, and you could just see the team, and so I think his leadership skill, he's a really good player. But I think what he brings to the team with his legs, his arm, and his leadership is what, he's won a lot of games as a starting quarterback at Missouri. So certainly having him back for Missouri puts a lot more on his ability to run. We have to watch that, and of course he throws the deep ball on play action about as good as anybody.
Before the season, you and Coach Petrino talked a lot about how it seemed like Talon just needed to improve a lot in technique and fundamentals and getting over the top more. Do you feel like he's done that now that we're, in the last week of the season?
I do. I think Talon is improving and doing a good job for us. And there's every quarterback in the country is going to miss a wide open throw every now and then. But I think he's improving on us, and I'm glad he's our quarterback.
We've talked a lot about protection with him this year. Just how much of, when he has had struggles, how much of that is protection? And then when he's done well, how much of it has been overcoming protection issues?
Well, he can make plays. I mean, getting outside the pocket. I think the Auburn game comes to my mind. When he's running to the left and threw it 65 or so to Satana. And he can, he's valuable with his feet once he gets out there. But I think any quarterback in the country, if he's protected well, even Saturday, I think Talon got a little jittery back there on a 3-man rush. He didn't need to. But those are things I think as he continues to play, he'll get better at. But to answer your question, I think I don't think there's any quarterback can play well under duress all the time, including NFL quarterbacks. So I think he's handled it pretty well.
I think Nico might have shared on social media that he had surgery. Can you just provide an update on Nico Davier?
Yeah, he's got a cartilage, and we don't know if it's, they can never tell you whether it's repairable or whether they trim it. Obviously, as a new wave, they're repairing more cartilages than what they used to. Obviously, if they're able to do that. So we won't really know. He's going to have his surgery this afternoon, and we really won't know whether it's a trim, which could get him back for the bowl game, or it's a repair, which is about a 5-month full recovery.
It seems like you guys are getting some really good play from the linebacker group. I'm just wondering, how vital is that too? You only play 2 at a time in that 3-2-6. How big have those guys been in your ability to play that formation?
Yeah, huge, and it's all of them. Obviously we haven't had Switzer, but he'll be back this week. But with Dix and Sorey and Spence, and of course young Shaw now, those are guys that I think a lot of people would like to have. We're happy that we have them. They're playing better. The one that really sticks out is Spence. I think Spence is really, really. He's proven to be a good pass rusher. Got a couple of sacks the last 2 games. But that room right there, when the portal opened last year and, the world was coming to an end, we went out and got us some pretty good players in there and obviously recruited Shaw, but was able to keep Spence, and I like that room. We need to keep them all, all 4 of them. We need to get them back next year, and so we'll go to work on that pretty soon.
Have they? I mean, like you guys were impressed with them in fall camp, but have they even that group, that position, even exceeded your expectations?
I think anytime you really don't know what you have, you've seen them play. Sorey had limited action over at Georgia, and Dix obviously he played a little bit more. But when you really don't know, Switzer's same way. Are you going to move him from safety to linebacker? When you really don't know what you have, and you're just looking at them in the weight room and they're running in the off season. You get excited because their athletic ability. Are they physical? Can they learn? Are they going to make a lot of mistakes? Are they not? Are they leaders? Because that group has to be. They probably have exceeded what even I thought they would be.
Staying on the defense, that 3-2-6, y'all used it quite a bit on Saturday. Was that because of low numbers at defensive end, or was it also just the schematics of Louisiana Tech, or kind of what went into that decision?
Yeah, probably a little bit of combination. To be honest with you, the other thing is we can't let guys behind us, and so that was a thought in it as well. Can we get to the edge fast enough to help the 3 down linemen? We felt like they were going to try to run on the edge on us. Can we get there enough? Which, if you're in that formation, you don't want them to run up the middle. You want them to run on the edge. That we felt like that's where they would try to do the most damage to us. So that part of the schematics off of what they do was part of the reason as well.
A bit of a random question, but I noticed the last couple of weeks that Kobe Branham has gotten in there
Yeah.
as y'all's sixth offensive lineman. Just what has he done to get on the field this year, late this year, and where do you envision him kind of fitting in on the offensive line moving forward?
Well, first of all, for him to get out there as a freshman and in key situation, you're looking at goal line, basically what he's playing right now, is a huge compliment to him. I fully expect that he battles for a starting position in spring ball. I do. I think he's special. I think he's well coached in high school, but he's just a special kid, and I expect him to battle in there at one of those guard spots this spring. But to answer your question, it's just because of his performance in practice.
You mentioned the two Missouri receivers. They've got a pair of running backs too that seem to be having a great
Yeah.
season. How important is it for them, their running game, to what they do overall?
I think it's what they do. I mean, I think they're for years they've been a great stretch team, and they still are. And you can tell when times get hard for them, or they want to run the clock out, or whatever, they will run that stretch, and they're specific plays off of it. I've just noticed this year that they're a lot better inside zone team. I mean, they're able to do both, which makes them a little harder to prepare for. The kid from Noel, the guy from App State, hard running guy, fast. Again, can really read what he needs to read. Missouri's one of the teams, very few teams that cut. They cut on, and it's legal, and they cut on the backside of the play, which opens some holes back there. We're going to have to really work on that this week. But I think both those kids are hard running. They're Missouri type backs, like the guy they had last year, just super special. But they run hard like that, and they have good vision.
Yeah, Sam, you got in the ball a little bit. Did Jordan Anthony's obviously a track guy with some good speed. What do you thought about his season?
Well, I think it would have escalated if he hadn't, had a foot injury. He's been hurt a little bit, Bob, but I like what he hasn't had the production in games that we'd like for it to. I think caught a pass down the middle against maybe Mississippi State for a touchdown, but I like him. It's difficult because he's a world. I mean, he's fast, and he's going to help our track team too. So when we recruited him, it was you can do track in the spring, help us in football when you can, and so. For him to get a lot of spring ball and all that with how successful he can be in track, and he likes track, it's been a little bit difficult. So we'll have to figure that out this spring. But I do like the ability that he's had to catch. I think he's grown in his catching, and so I like him. I think he's got a bright future here.
You're going for your third SEC road win. I should have looked it up. Arkansas has not done that very often because you've already won it at Mississippi State and at Auburn, and you gave Oklahoma State a tough game. Obviously, what do you think is the key to you guys playing pretty well on the road? And is that something you can kind of harp on with the guys this week?
You take the 74 guys, and it's a close knit group. It's kind of those are us against everybody type games. Obviously, you would hope that you would play better at home just because of the fans and the crowd noise, but we've been able to handle the noise. Probably is the biggest thing. We've been able to handle the noise, and that's a lot. We haven't had a lot of offsides penalties or illegal procedure penalties on the road. But I'd attribute to just basically we're taking the 74, we're us against the world mentality, and our ability to handle the noise. A lot of teams can't, and we've been fortunate.
I guess Satania's statistically the number 2 wide receiver on the team. I guess what have you seen in his development throughout the season, and maybe what's next for him having finally getting more production this season?
Well, I just thought he had a really good game Saturday. Boy, he can jump. He went up and got the one across the middle, and I think his confidence has grown throughout the year. It should, but I think what you saw Saturday is probably something you're going to see a little bit more, a few more catches, a few more catches on contested balls. And with that comes confidence. I think you can feel his confidence by the way, he was returning punts, and how he was catching punts without fair catching and all that, for ones that he would have prior to Saturday. So I think his confidence is growing, and he's always been talented.
You look at Missouri's roster; they've got a good number of people from Arkansas on the roster, but you got Monte Harrison, who's 29, probably hasn't lived in Lee Summit in a while, and Vito Calvaruso. Is there any reason behind that? Well, you guys don't, and you obviously got ties to Missouri too, but you guys don't have a lot of Missouri presence on the roster.
Well, I'm looking at their two deep, and I don't think there's a whole lot of Arkansas kids in that two deep. But Missouri, to answer your question about Missouri, we've tried. They've got really good players, especially Kansas City and St. Louis, and Missouri's getting a lot of those kids. Oklahoma's been getting a lot of the Kansas City kids, and those are, Trey, to answer your question, that is something that we've tried to amp up our staff numbers into those areas because they're close, and especially with 49 coming all the way through now, it's even faster to get here. So we certainly have tried to address that.
I was wondering also, just obviously you want to win every game and it's important, but with it being like a month between this game and, well, give or take a month in the bowl game,
Right.
and everything that's happening in that window with recruiting and transfer portal and stuff.
Yeah.
How big would it be in terms of momentum into those next few weeks after this game?
I think 7-5, 4-4 in the league, and beating a top 25 team, a top 5 team. I think that would really help us in recruiting through the portal. Obviously, we're going to a bowl either way, but I think it would be big to get that win, and so we're going to try like hell to get that done.
Going back to the offensive line, getting Kudus back in there, what's the difference that he makes when he's out there on the line, and from a protection standpoint too with Taylor?
Well, Kudus is one of our better players, and so he's big, athletic guy, can really run. So to have him and continue to have Blackstock, now if something happened or you need to play two, you need to rest one. A lot of times then you fall off where we wouldn't fall off as much. But obviously Kudus is one of our best linemen. We want to have him out there, which we'll be able to have.
What are your Thanksgiving plans with the team and with Jamie, or what are you guys doing?
Well, the team's going to we're going to practice early on Thursday, and they probably should be out by around noon. And then I guess they'll have off until about 12:30. I think staff's at 9, so it's usually 3 hours. So 12 be a team meeting on Friday. And I know a lot of the coaches are having some kids over. I know they're going to go home if they're close and take some friends with them. Right now, my plans are just to go home, and we don't have any company, which is love company, but I also love when it's just Jamie and I, and so that's we're just going to have that day. Probably watch a little football, take a nap, put some ice on my hip, and figure it out.
I think you said on the radio that was your favorite kind of Thanksgiving, just
It
you and
is.
Jamie.
It is, and I can't. I probably shouldn't have said that because everybody who's ever been to our house on Thanksgiving think I don't want them there. That's not true.
Eli, he kind of stirs this thing up. He's
Yeah.
made a big deal out of this rivalry. What do you think of him and y'all's relationship and how he's done this rivalry?
Well, I have respect for. He stirred up a lot of stuff, not just with Arkansas. So I have a lot of respect for him. He's a hell of a coach now, and you don't want him to have the ball on the last drive. And I mean, you don't, because he's outstanding and has won a lot of games that way. It's a rivalry. He told me he's going to try to stir it up too when we first when we first came here. I respect the guy. He's obviously done a really nice job there. So, um, you know, we're rivals and they've got the trophy and they've had it for last 2 years. We'd like to get it back.
I know we've asked you about Andrew Armstrong a little bit, but he's gone past 1,000 and he has a chance to have one of the best seasons ever. What's just he meant to the dynamic of this offense?
Yeah, big time. That makes a couple of guys, over the last 3 seasons, that went over 1,000 yards, and that certainly will help us in recruiting as well. But I think Andrew he had strong belief in himself. You have to, coming from, Commerce, you have to, but you see a guy have a pretty good season, and then a lot of times he won't elevate the next year. He'll be satisfied. He gets more NIL money, whatever it is. He's done the opposite. He got more NIL money, but he also earned every penny of it, and so I have high respect for his work ethic, the way he's handled his business, and he's playing as good as I ever would have dreamt him playing.
Some of the losses you guys have had in Como have been, excruciating.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Well, even when I was here with Brett,
right.
And
the year after you left in 2016, Barry Odom faked a punt on his own 7-yard line.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, that kind of piles up, and it hasn't been favorable for Arkansas. Just your thoughts.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We played them obviously 4 years and won one of them out here, and so that makes us 1-3. So, the first year we were out there, I think I went for 2, and we messed around and made it, and then there was 30 or 40 seconds left, and they went down and kicked a field goal and beat us, and we've had some good games. Obviously, last year was not. It was for them. And so it's hard to win. You see other teams going in and playing at Missouri. I think they're undefeated at home this year, and it's a hard place to play. They've got really good fans, and just, on the road a lot of times, just hard to go into an opponent and win. Even though, we've lost some games here, but Tennessee, it was hard for them to come in here and win as well. It's just hard.
You mentioned a lot of new players not here last year for the game against Missouri, but the coaching staff, especially on the defensive side of the ball, all here. Do you sense maybe a little extra motivation from those guys based off what happened in this matchup?
We've motivated. I've done good I can motivate, and they're gonna get tired of me by the time the week's end. But we can't have that kind of performance again. But we have high respect because they're a really good team, physical team. But we got all the motivation we need. We just got to go up there and play well.
Sam, one of the things I've heard coaches say throughout the years is that the biggest advantage to a bowl game is just getting those extra days of practice, extra weeks of practice to look at younger players. But with the transfer portal and college football becoming so transient, is that still the case as far as you wanting to look at younger players during the bowl practices, or do you want to kind of keep working your regular guys there?
That's a good question, but the ones that stay, yes. So you're going to get the same benefit. The problem is that the guy that might be a 3, he might be a starter by the time bowl happens. But let's look at it. If you don't, of course, this is 4 out of 5, and we practiced all the way up until the plane ride my first year here, and to me, we're 1-3 in the SEC. We should have been. Well, we were invited, so we should have been. But so let's take those 15. So this is 4. So that's 60 practices. Now, I get what you're saying. You may not have the same guy here for those 60 practices. If you look at it and you have 30 before the season, that's 2 preseasons of practice. If a guy was here for 4 years or for 5 now, that he would have the advantage of the guys that aren't able to go. I'll say this. I felt like it really hurt us last year not to have those practices. I really did. Not only that, but I do think if you're not practicing, I think you lose more guys in the portal. They're home over the time, whomever gets to them, all that stuff. I don't think the portal will be quite as a big a deal for us because we have money. You know, we have not. You know, the first 2 years I was here, money wasn't an issue. It was scholarships and cost of attendance and all. We went from 4-20 to 9-4. Then NIL came in. We just didn't have the money that other folks had. We are now going to get back into that area, and maybe if it's even Steven, hopefully you'll see the team go back to what we did, what we were able to accomplish in our first 2 years.
Following up on the money question, is it more important to have that money to go out and get new players, or is it more important to have that money to keep your own guys here?
Talk to me about Wednesday or Thursday of next week. I'll let you know. But obviously, you have a core group of guys that our record 6-5, so it's not what everybody wants and all that, including me. But we do have a good core group of players that we need to return. And so we've got to do that first. And then you look in your pool and you say, okay, how much I got? Well, I need this many, this position. I need this many, this position. I need, and then you kind of look at it and you say, in the past, if we got 100,000, somebody else got 300,000, we've done. We're out of it. I don't care what people say. You can't talk a guy because he likes you in a $200,000 transition. By the way, if any of you guys got $200,000 more, you'd be gone too. And so now we have it. So let's see what we can do with it.
Yeah, Sam, I think I got this right from the notes that you guys had 55 newcomers. I know everybody's got a lot of newcomers,
Yeah.
but I think that was like tied for the FBC lead or something like that.
You counting walk-ons too, or no, Bob?
Okay, Kyle, it was Kyle's notes, but no. Just how do you think that's obviously a lot of turnover? How do you think all that's worked with the returnees and the new guys and all that?
It's hard, but everybody has to deal with it, not everybody. I mean, that number is probably higher than a lot and lower than some, but it's difficult because you're trying to get the right person in. You're not only trying to get the right athlete, the right position player, you're trying to get probably more important than any of it, you're trying to get the most right person in because, bad apple can affect your work area. It can affect ours. So you're looking for people, obviously talented people, but you got to get the right people that'll fit the culture, are willing to work.
What makes Columbia, I think Trey asked this earlier, but what makes Columbia such a difficult place to play?
I wish I knew that. We'd have a couple more wins, I think Eli's done a great job of cultivating the fans. It's when we play them, it's usually cold, which they're probably a little bit more used to that than we are. I don't know exactly. We've been playing on Friday. Maybe they did a better job of preparing their team than we have. But it's always been up there. It seems to me like it's been a close game, and something happened like 2 years ago. We went up there and I kicked a field goal to put it within a 1-score game, and we never got the ball back. And hindsight, you probably should have went for it. From the 5 or whatever it was at the time, and so. They're always close games, and we just got to figure out a way to win it.
One more, just Freddie Cook. What's the difficult kind of nature of containing a guy like that?
Athletic, can throw, knows the offense probably as good as his coach does. He's a winner, and those guys are scary. I mean, he's a winner, and like I said, you could just feel it through the TV. When he came back for the Auburn game, made it certainly a big difference in that game.
I was wondering with the revenue sharing also, but just as far as the NIL side of things go, do you think you'll have more in that regard too?
I don't, but I think we can combine it. In other words, I think we can go a year contract over where we're at NIL with where we're going to be revenue sharing, combine it for a year's time. possibly pay the kids like the NFL does, something percentile, OTAs, weightlifting bonus, all that. Not that we would do it. I'm saying like the NFL does it, and then pay them more during the season. The totality of the money would be the same, and so we would do that, to be honest with you, Trey, whether revenue sharing was in January or whether it was in July, simply because the portal opens in April, and I don't think we want to pay equal increments all the way up to April, and then somebody goes in the portal. I think you want to entice them to come back with more money during the season.
You guys would have more money, everybody else would too. Do you think that would, and you kind of mentioned that, maybe you wouldn't have lost some of the guys you lost last year if you'd had more money. Do you think that'll impact the volume of talent in the portal with other teams being able to maybe keep guys that they might have lost?
Yeah, I feel really sorry for, I do, for non-Power 4 teams or some of the Power 4 teams that, well, mostly not, or other conference Power 4 teams that have really good players and not be able to afford to keep them. And I don't want to say this, Trey, like every kid's out there looking for the almighty dollar. That's not the case. But if the dollar differential is huge, then your chances of keeping somebody aren't very good. And most of the time they know that dollar and know the amount before they ever come see me. They've already figured it out through whatever channels that happen.
Yeah, you talked about Kobe Branham and Bradley Shaw a little bit today. We saw Charlie Collins cave in a guy the other night. I'm just wondering the up and comers that might have bigger roles next year, like those guys.
Davion Henderson would be another one, just pops out. I think he's going to be a really good player. I like Jaden Allen. I like Selman Bridgers, our two freshman corners. Now, Jaden, he's going to practice today. So, he's back from that cartilage repair. Offensively, let's see. Of course, KJ Jackson, we're very, very high on him. The wide receiver group there, Cross, I think he's got a lot of talent as a young player. CJ Brown will keep coming on. Trying to think off the top of my head.
Braylon would probably maybe.
Oh, Braylon, I'm sorry. Braylon would certainly be a guy that we want to build the future around. So, yeah.
You good with the Saturday game? You think it's going to be neat to try a new day or what?
Yeah, the Friday one ain't working, so we'll try to switch it.
Thanks, Coach.